Hello everyone. I'm Labidine Ghebouli. I'm a junior consultant at the American University of Beirut. I focus mainly on political, cultural trends in Algeria and currently also across the region. So I'm gonna talk about how protest movements have been victims of manipulation and discreditation campaigns in Algeria since the beginning of the protest movement on February 2019, and also in Lebanon since October 17, 2019. So I'm gonna start with Algeria. At the beginning of the protest movement, there weren't a lot of campaigns against activists at the very beginning because it was impossible to discredit that popular discontent at certain point. But since the resignation of Bouteflika on April 2nd, 2019, activists and journalists were victims of different defamation campaigns. This included several social media pages, particularly on Facebook, that accused activists of serving the agendas of some foreign intelligence agencies. The other disinformation tactics included many posts on Facebook and Twitter that were meant at certain point to boost the reputation of senior state officials, particularly military officials. That was especially during the times of Gaid Saleh, who passed away in December and who served as Algeria Army Chief of Staff. So, in that sense, Algeria has witnessed a large-scale campaign of pro-system disinformation that resembled at certain point the one used previously by the Assad forces at the beginning of the Syrian revolution. Since the start of the COVID-19 crisis, these disinformation campaigns got stronger for one main reason. Because street protests were halted at certain point because of the crisis, the struggle became a social media-based one. Pro-system pages were aiming to control the narrative on Algerian social media, and in that context, we noticed a debate shift. Before COVID, the discussions on social media were mainly revolving around pragmatic tools of change, serious political topics, democratization process. But during COVID, especially since the government imposed the lockdown, if I remember well, in March, there's been an ideological battle on social media, mainly fueled by fake accounts on Facebook, that aim to divide the protest movement. We're still witnessing this, and unfortunately, this ideological divide has reached the ground. We've seen it in Paris recently because Algerian activists based in France, especially in Paris, after France opened up after the COVID crisis, they organized some protests, and we witnessed some ideological divisions to the point that the Hirak that was once united, even unorganized but united, is today facing maybe a crisis of existence. To be frank, in Lebanon, and I'm gonna make it very quick, the protest movement has been a victim of disinformation campaigns on two levels. First, there is the sectarian level, and Lebanon being home to 18 official religious sects, has always struggled with sectarian-fueled violence. Most recently in the civil war that dated between 75 and 90, despite the fact that the protest movement was primarily led by the youth who, one could imagine, have little if any sectarian sentiments. However, unfortunately, since the resignation of Saad Hariri, the former prime minister, on November 4th, if I remember well, we've seen many sectarian online battles that eventually developed to some sectarian sentiments, threatening the ongoing protest movement. Bluntly said, and I'm sorry to use some sectarian terms, they reached a point in Lebanon where the Christians feel ever more scared of the Muslims, and there is this Sunni Shia divide and so on. So Lebanon is practically back to the pre-war social narrative or social divided fabric, and that's why many people here are afraid of the civil war if it continues like this. Second, there is, and I'm gonna finish with this, there is the Hezbollah fueled propaganda. Now, Hezbollah has always existed and survived, especially since the 2006 war, using the argument that it's fighting Israel, that it is something that's commonly known as the resistance argument. Once the protest movement erupted on October 17, it was somehow clear that it will eventually develop to discuss Hezbollah's weapons. Therefore, since early days of this movement, Hezbollah leaders and networks, led by the Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah, accused the protest movement of being the product of an embassy-fueled conspiracy. And in that sense, several activists were accused online of serving U.S. regional interests and being aligned with Israel. So they were basically seen as traitors. To finish in 10 seconds, I think it could be said that in both countries, foreign conspiracy theories were used as an argument to undermine the protest movements. Unfortunately, the leaderless, unorganized nature of the protest movement, even if it has avoided certain tactic of co-optation by the systems, it has also contributed to weakening the movement's capacity to counter revolution narratives. I don't know to how far this campaign will continue, but in Algeria maybe it will remain online, but in Lebanon, unfortunately, because the state is kind of too weak, some violence could erupt because of this disinformation campaigns. Thank you.